Hey guys, welcome back to Unleashed, and remember that we are the Resistance. I am recording this podcast from home today. It's a bit early, as we are headed to work at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas for the next week. And if you're not familiar with that, the SHOT Show, it's a trade-only event. Attendance is restricted. You can't be under 16. You have to be somewhat in the outdoor industry, which SHOT is the shooting, hunting, and outdoor trade commercial buyers. Sellers, right? They're military, law enforcement, tactical products, that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun. It really is pretty cool to see all these different people from around the world that really help protect our country or that are in the industry. Some really colorful characters. But the 2025 SHOT Show will have almost 3,000 exhibitors on the show floor. It's the largest event. It's held at the Venetian Expo in Las Vegas. And in 2022, they actually expanded this show to Caesars Forum, which is now where I'll be located at the show. I used to be over in the Venetian, but now I've been moved over. I think this will be the fourth year. I mean, every year, I think, since we've had it now, in Caesars Forum. But one of the fun things about this show is that you get to meet a lot of people from the outdoor industry. Like I said, you've got law enforcement, you've got military, a lot of famous people. You'll see movie stars walking around that somehow are connected, I don't know how, but into the industry. And one of the products that I'm going to be repping is something called the Rapid Rod. Now, what that is, it's not necessarily a gun cleaning rod, but it can be used for gun cleaning. It's all one-piece aluminum. It unfolds like within 2 seconds. When people see me, do this thing at the show and take this rod out of the case, and in 2 seconds I have it ready to be able to put inside the gun barrel, they're just blown away. And so, if you get a jam in your rifle or you've got other debris, mud or sticks or something down inside of that, you don't have to, like with the kits that you have for maybe your gun cleaning rod, where you have to thread each section, together. This thing, the way that it's made, I can't really, describe how they do it, but it unfolds almost kind of like a tent stake or something you'd have, right? Tent pole. But I mean, I have this thing unfolded in 2 seconds, and I can break it down just about as fast. And the company, they sell a ton of these things. I was working the Great Outdoor Show in Harrisburg. I think it was in 2020, and this is the only thing that I was there for, was to sell. And I forget how many cases. I had a couple thousand of these. And it was like a 7-day show, I think, whatever that is out there. By day 4, I was done. I'd sold everything I had. So a lot of people, when they see this, are like, man, I have got to have that. Whether you're at a gun range, whether you're taking your kids hunting, you're hunting, military, police. And we have a ton of guys that from the special forces, whether it be Green Beret, Delta, SEALs, whatever, they hear about these rapid rods that we have. And I mean, special forces from all over the world, SAS, everything, they will come and find us at the show so they can, find out how to be able to order one of these things. And this is really cool. A few years ago, I gave one of these rapid rods to a Navy SEAL who was at the booth. Since I was a kid, I wanted to be a SEAL. So did my son. And I've just loved reading, about SEALs and everything that they go through and how skilled they are and how fit and all that kind of stuff. But I gave this one SEAL that came through one of these rapid rods. He was getting ready to go on another deployment back. I forget whether it was Iraq. How many years ago? I'm trying to think whether it was Afghanistan. But anyhow, a year later, he comes back, brought the rapid rod that I had given him. I had a display model. I gave it to him. He comes back a year later, and he walks up with this rapid rod, and it was mangled. Now, here's the thing. We have a lifetime replacement warranty, if you damage it, in any way. But he comes back and he's apologizing, and I said, hey, no worries, I'll replace it. He goes, no. He says, I didn't bring this back to complain or to try to get another one. He said, I brought this back to say thank you, because this thing literally saved my life. He said, I got into a gunfight, I got a jam. He said, I had this rod, he was wearing the thing on his belt. He says, I had this thing out of the case, and I was literally within the barrel within seconds. And he said, it's damaged because I used a rock to pound on this thing to get the jammed round out. you can put quite a bit of pressure on these things. They really are amazing. All aluminum. They fit anything from a 22 to a 50 cal, all the way down to I think is it a 10 gauge? I forget, but they're really just have a lot of uses with this. He said, had I been using the rod that you have to thread together like so many guys get in their Pelican case when they deploy or whatever, he said, I'd have been dead. He said, this thing really saved my life. And that is an incredibly amazing story. And here's the thing. We get lots of those amazing stories at this show, at the SHOT Show, every single year. We'll have like elk hunters. They'll be telling stories about how they had it folded up on their belt. They got a jam, being out on horseback out west somewhere. One guy came up and he said, this saved me like $10,000. He goes, the situation I was in, all the snow and mud I was picking up, he goes, I'd have had to quit. But he says, they're great because whether you're on a range, no matter where you are, if you got a kid out in the woods, you got to clear that barrel quickly. These rapid rods, you can look up online, you can find them. They retail for like $23 or something, but they are worth their weight in gold. The other thing about Las Vegas is, and this is one of the cool things, is you never know who you're going to see at this show. Last year, I'm sitting in the booth, and I look up and I see this guy. He had a hat on, a flannel shirt, and like a shooter's kind of a vest, like tan, and he's got a short beard, and I'm going, I know this guy. And then I realized it was Donald Trump Jr. He's huge into the shooting sports. And, I've heard he's been out there. This is the first time he'd ever come by our booth. And now his dad's, going to be sworn in. We're going to be setting this. When you hear this, it's probably when we're going to be setting the booth up out at SHOT Show on Monday during the inauguration. Another year, Lou Ferrigno. Many of you guys remember that name. He was, Mr. Universe. He played the Incredible Hulk in that popular TV show when I was growing up. I actually got my picture taken with him. I've thought if I can find that, I might even put that up on the maybe as the thumbnail for the podcast. But his head is like almost twice as big as mine. I'm 6 foot, 205 pounds. I work out all the time. This guy makes me look like mini me. It's incredible. He's a huge dude. And I would see guys at the show from the Alaska Gold Rush TV show. You remember that show? Chuck Norris. He still shows up at many of these shows. He's got to be pushing 90. He's up there. I see a lot of the UFC guys coming through. Steven Seagal, I actually almost ran right into him one time. He's a big guy. Marcus Luttrell, maybe you remember him from that, what was the movie, Lone Survivor? They were a SEAL team that got sent in trying to take out one of these main guys. He got pinned down by the Taliban in the mountains. He's the only one that lived. A really powerful story. And the list goes on. There's just tons of war heroes and anyone who has served and gone out there to protect us. I really do consider heroes, and I thank you for your service, sincerely. But the other thing about Vegas, and Stacy's going with me, she's been, I think, 3 times before. I think this will be her fourth trip going out there with me. She's a people watcher. And there's probably no crazier place on the planet to see really interestingly dressed people. That's a nice way of saying it. Probably even stranger than watching some of those you might see at Walmart. It's a crazy place. You're going, what in the world were you thinking when you put that on? And that's the way Vegas is. It's just bizarre. I'm one of these guys, I go work the show, I'll get breakfast, go work the show, go to dinner, go back to my room. I don't do the nightlife stuff out there. It's just not me. The whole gambling thing they got going on, that isn't me. I'd rather keep my money, thank you very much. But I do like playing games. Grew up doing that with my family. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers and Xboxes and all this stuff when I was a kid. We spent a lot of time face to face, playing games. Remember the game of Life? Those little tiny cars, and you had these little pegs like the mom and the dad, and then if you have a child, you put that in there. Great way of kind of learning what it's going to look like to have to be responsible and have a family and a job and all that stuff. Great game. Monopoly was another one we used to always play. And I don't know about you, but when I'm headed on a trip, I always want to connect with my family before I leave because you never know, what can happen. God forbid. But we do know that anything can happen. I've talked on here about the accident my parents was in when I was traveling, going to Canada to speak. I know anything can happen. And I really would like those who are closest to me know how I feel about them. One of the things that we love to do, and not just before a trip, is we have family game night. And we all look forward to it. It's like, hey, can we do game night tonight? We get goofy. I mean, really goofy. The kind of stuff that I probably wouldn't let anybody else see except for my family. We laugh a lot, and it draws us closer because we've spent a lot of time together instead of everybody just, sitting around scrolling on your phones. And everywhere I go, and I'll bet you'll relate to this. Hopefully hopefully it isn't you, but it probably is all of us. Sometimes we see families together and they're all on their phones. I mean, even sitting across from each other at restaurants. Social media has been really hard on families, even marriages. I mean, you think about it. You go to bed at night. You're both scrolling on a video or looking at something, reading something, rather than being close to each other and maybe saying, what was it like to be you today? What was your day like? What did you learn? What did you experience? And we need face-to-face time. I mean, can you imagine the disciples all sitting around while Jesus was teaching them, and they're scrolling on their phones? You can't do both things well. You just can't. And not have the depth that you were created for in relationships. There's an old Russian proverb that I love. And what does it say? It's like, if you chase two rabbits, you will not catch either one. And I've heard women say, that men aren't good at multitasking, and I would agree. But I would also add, no one is. You go, huh? Because the truth is, as soon as you divide your attention to more than one thing, you can no longer give your full and undivided attention, really, to anything. Stacy and I, we love watching the news together in the evenings. We do. It's something we both have in common because we both want to understand what's happening in the world. What policies are, what leaders are like, what's happening, and more importantly, in our own nation and our own communities. But as soon as one of the kids, walks into the room or they get home from work or whatever, one of the things that we do is we immediately pause the television and turn toward them in whatever they want to talk about. And that is so incredibly important because it lets them know that they are important, more important than other stuff going on out here. Yes, those things are important, but family is one of the greatest gifts God has given us. I've got 2 children of my own. I've got 3 stepchildren, and I love them all. And I want time with all of them. That's one of the most important things that we really can do is give them our time because it says to them, I love you. You matter. I care about you. And another fun thing that we do before bed, and this wasn't planned, it's just kind of morphed into this. Before we go to sleep or we actually get in bed, we all get on top of the bed at the end of the day and we talk about our day before everybody kind of goes off to their own rooms. It's like a game night without, having the cards or the games we're playing. It's about connection. It's about time. And it shows caring. It builds trust. And it's really how you get to know each other. And everybody wants to be known as long as it's safe. Funny thing, before we kind of took everything upstairs and finished our conversation, we were all downstairs. And we're sitting around the living room. We had 2 chairs across the room, and Sophie, my 22-year-old stepdaughter, was in one. Emma was to my left, sitting by her mom, and Stacy was right beside me. And I wanted to make up some new game that didn't require playing cards or technology. It's something that would cause us to interact and think and really be honest with each other and love each other. And so what I wanted us to do was I wanted us to choose one person in the room. And then each one of us would say what we see in them. And then the other person, would do the next thing. We would switch. After all 3 people had said to the 4th person what they see in them, what they mean to them, then you go to the next person and we'd all do the same thing. And what I found really interesting was in how kind everybody was. Because, sometimes when you're playing games, you can get a little bit of, competition and cutthroat kind of a thing. But this was different. Because it wasn't about competition. If it was anything, it was about encouraging. And it was really neat because they were very willing and ready to say what others mean to them, which, I shouldn't say it caught me off guard, but it was pretty vulnerable to really speak out of your heart and not be guarded. And that can only happen when you've created an environment of safety, right? And listening. And so each one of us would say this, even if it sounded corny or cheesy. That's just one thing you had to get over. And it was amazing time spent together. Sometimes, Emma, the youngest, will travel with me. And I have an Emma as well, who is now 26 years old. And she used to go with me on some of these events. But the youngest now, she wants to make some money. And if the event's close enough and I'm driving, she goes and she helps set up my table and she works the book table and she makes money because she hasn't been old enough to be able to, drive and go get another job yet. But besides stopping at like gas stations where she likes to load up with drinks and chocolate, right? We like to make up games as we drive. We play something called person, place, or thing. You pick which one you want. And you have to come up with something in your head, and the other person has to guess what it is. We will play that forever. And another thing that we made up one day, trying to come up with something new, I think I was going to speak at a sportsman's dinner, like a wild game dinner. I think it was in Pennsylvania. And by the way, the end of this month, January 31st and February 1st, I'll be speaking up close to Erie, Pennsylvania for a game dinner. So if you have any interest in going to that, reach out to me through the Unleashed Men website. There's an email in there. You can get a hold of me, and I'll get you the details. But so we come up with this game, and in this game, we pick a family member as the two of us are talking, and then we describe what role that person would be, like in our family, if our country was like attacked. Who'd be in charge of getting the food together? Who'd be in charge of finding water? Who would be in charge of protecting the home? First aid. And on and on. And if you've ever wanted to see the major differences between how men and women think or how God made us, that's a fun one to play out because you really will see the roles. God says he created them male and female, he created them. It's a neat way to kind of see how we lean on each other for those things. So last night, as I kind of made this game up, and I started with Sophie. She's going to be 22 years old this week. And so I just started, and I said to her, I said, you know what, you're a light in a dark world. You're really amazing with people. And she is. She's great with helping someone through problems. She knows the right questions to ask. And I don't know whether that comes from me being a coach for so many years, and I've done that with her. But I think she's very intuitive. She has a lot of this stuff that it's a gift. She'd make a great therapist, by the way. But she's creative. The stuff she does for work, she loves hard when others would give up on somebody. She doesn't give up. She will believe in them until there's nothing left to believe in. And she's a ball of energy. And I tease her sometimes. She gets what we call a case of the zoomies. If you've ever seen rabbits or dogs, when they get wound up, they can't stop. That's the way she can be. She can't slow down once she's wound up. It's really funny. But that's Sophie. She really is a light, especially if you've had kind of one of a down day. Just be around her, and she really will cheer your day up. So the next person that we came to was my wife, Stacy. And, the girls, it's interesting to kind of not pick on mom like kids will do with their parent, but to give their heart to their mom in this situation. And everyone, both the girls, we all said this. All three of us said, she's the one who works harder than anybody. Every day, even when no one is looking. She's up at 5 o'clock. She's mopping floors. She's doing laundry. I help with that stuff. She'll tell you I do. But sometimes if I do it, I'm like, hey, by the way, I got that done today. Well, why do I even need to say that, right? I'm just looking for a thanks or something. She doesn't. She says, this is life. This is what you got to do. She's amazing. She always makes sure that we have a clean house. She makes it beautiful, not just at the holidays, but year-round. She's a master decorator. She always makes sure that we have something good to eat. She does the grocery shopping. She doesn't need help. She does it on Sundays. We all kind of carry it in and put it away. But she knows everybody, and she knows what they want, what they would desire, and she tries her best to be able to provide that for everybody. She'll always try to help anyone through whatever struggles they're going through without judgment. And her girls see her more than just being mom, right? And even though she's a mom first, and she would tell you that she's had to learn how to be able to do that because the temptation is to want to be your kid's friend to get you to like them. But she is their mom first, and then she's their closest friend. The one downside, and I don't know if there's really any downsides, but about being married to Stacy is that I have to have oxygen whenever she's around because she takes my breath away every single time she walks into the room. You're going to use that one on your wife. You know you're going to, right? Just don't tell her where you heard that. Okay, moving on. So, bad dad jokes, I know. So then it came to me. I was the next one, and they said, hey, it's your turn. We're all going to say something to you. And Sophie started out by saying, she's like, here's the way I kind of see you. She said, you're like the family protector. She says, you're kind of like this umbrella. It's a covering when the storms come. And for a man, let alone being a stepdad, you have no idea how much that meant to me. Because you don't know sometimes, how your stepchildren might see you. And it's always a little bit awkward. If you're a stepdad or stepmom or whatever, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're not necessarily the birth parent, but you have spent a big chunk of time parenting and loving unconditionally, making sure that they have whatever they need. And so for her to say that to me, that really meant a lot. Stacy, she says, Brent, it's your faith. She says, I love it and I hate it at the same time. She said, because no matter how dire the circumstances or our finances might be, she says, you're always going to trust God. And she said, that's really hard for her because of her childhood. Trust is a big thing. And faith, it's really difficult when you can't trust. And her story plays into all that. But she said, but Brent, your faith and your trust in God, no matter what, has really helped when she has wanted to just run away from God, run away from everything. For her to say that, that was a big thing. Because there'll be many times when I'll have a church that goes, you know what, we're going to get that money to you after the event. I know you were supposed to have it when you finish speaking, but we'll get a check nailed next week, and it'll be 2-3 weeks, which drives Stacy crazy because she's trying to budget. We are missionaries. That's what we do. Anyhow, so that was one thing that was really big. She says, your faith and your trust in God is something that has really helped me. So then it came to the last one, Emma. She's 15, and she's the baby of the family. And so here's the thing about Emma. She's crazy funny. I mean, especially when it gets to be evening time. It's kind of like, was the Gremlins, don't feed them after midnight. Emma kicks in the evening. That's when she's like alert, awake, alive, makes us laugh like crazy. She loves to bake, and she's really good at it. I mean, she really is very, very good at it. I'm not just saying that because I'm her stepdad. I just ate one of the chocolate chip banana muffins right before I came up here. She's incredibly smart. I mean, she's got all A's, has for years. I mean, that wasn't me. I mean, I was like, I had to, I shouldn't say I studied hard because I didn't. But she's one of these people that she probably studied about as much as I do, but she has, just 4.0. It's like crazy. She's got a photographic memory. She's an amazing vocalist. I mean, seriously. She's an artist. And I told her last night, don't lose that, because as she's getting older and you begin to kind of put some of those things to the side that maybe as a kid, like I was a good artist when I was little, but maybe about the 4th grade, somebody was better than I was. And I kind of just put it to the side because I was like, I don't want to have to compete with someone. I'm like, no, don't ever do that. That's a gift that you have. And I told her last night, keep nurturing that the rest of your life because you love to do it. Don't worry about other people. If you love something, then you pour your heart into it. There's a depth that is really just kind of now we're seeing in Emma that maybe she didn't realize she had, or she's growing into it. And we've gotten to see how loving and caring this girl is. She's thoughtful. And her beauty is more than an outer beauty, right? It runs deep. And when she loves, just like her mom and like her older sister, she's all in. And that's, for any of us. To love hard like that puts us in a vulnerable position. But why would you want anything else? She's the youngest. She's 15. And lately she's been like a lot of 15-year-olds. A lot of drama, right? Going through a hard time. And at 15, life has been changing fast for her. And when I picked her up from school yesterday, I didn't take her right home because I knew she was struggling. I took her out to look through some stores that she loves to go to. It was about a 20-minute drive, and just didn't go home first, went there. And the hardest thing for me, honestly, is to not buy her everything she wants. I have to be so careful, not like I could afford it, but I'm talking about that small stuff. Hey, look at this in the checkout aisle, that kind of a deal. Or sometimes clothing or whatever. But one of Stacy's coworkers says that Emma has me tied around her little finger. And Stacy replied to her coworker, no, she doesn't have them wrapped around her little finger. She has them wrapped around both little fingers. And I think all one of my daughter's stepdaughters, I think they all do. And so I took her shopping to help her day get better, to help clear her mind, and honestly, to have some time with her. Life is getting busy. This is my speaking season. I'm going to be traveling. So I take her 20 minutes back and forth to school every day. That's a lot of windshield time. And some days she doesn't like to talk. It's early. She's tired. And then there's other days where she doesn't like to talk. She's quiet in the mornings. And I don't force her to talk. She's like a cat, right? She'll come to you when she's ready if you make it safe for her. She started out last night saying that she loved that I took her shopping after school yesterday because I know her well enough to know that she was really hurting. And she just didn't want to verbalize it. And then she said that I would do that and give her my time to help her feel better really meant a lot to her. And for her to tell me that was huge. It was about 3 days ago. She called me to the top of the stairs. I think there was a 2-hour school delay because of snow stuff. And so she was up and she was at the top of the stairs sitting. She's like, we have this small artificial tree that's got like a blanket wrapped around, left over from Christmas stuff around the base. This blanket is. And she was sitting about 5 feet away from the base of this tree. And there was her cat. The cat's name is Shy. It's been given that name for a reason. And she was slowly trying to build trust to get the cat to come to her. Shy doesn't like really coming to anybody. Shy will come to me, but that's because when that thing was little, we rescued the cat. I fed it. I played with it while they were in school or something, and so it learned to trust me. And she is learning that sometimes the best way to get, that cat to come to you, and the same thing with people, is you got to give them space. Don't pressure them. And here's the last thing. You have to help meet or nourish their needs. Cats trust the people that feed them. Cats trust the people that play with them, whether it be like one of those little laser clickers or whatever or a little toy with like little feathers on it, whatever. They know that if you're doing that somehow they understand that you care about them, that you're meeting their needs. And people can be the same way. And the best way to grow our relationships with our children, our spouses, with anybody, is to be there for them. Don't pressure, don't put on shame and judgment, and to love them right where they're at. Jesus was the master, right? The woman at the well. Holy cow. This woman's life is transformed after he gets into her world and loves her right where she's at. She goes back to the village telling everybody about this man who knows everything about her, bad or whatever that she's ever done, and he showed her grace. And it transforms a ton of people in the town because of how Jesus treated her. It matters. So I'm recording this on a Friday to release it over the weekend before I head out, because this is actually Friday afternoon. If you're wondering where I'm at, I'm in Anderson, Indiana, sitting here in my studio at home rather than being in the studio downtown. And yesterday, I'm in line. I take her to school in the mornings, and I'm picking her up in the afternoons, and I sit there for about 40 minutes. I try to get early in line so I can be one of the first ones to pick her up. And I'm sitting in my truck in this line waiting for her to come out from school. I have my phone in my hand, and I'm parked. I've got, just sitting there, and I'm watching some reels on Facebook. And there was one that popped up, and it was of a stepfather dancing with his stepdaughter at her wedding. Gotcha. I immediately teared up. I was trying to get myself together before she got in the truck. I'm sitting there going, holy cow, why did this hit me like this? And, we might not talk on the way to or from school a lot of days, but never, ever underestimate windshield time. Time spent together has incredible value. You don't always have to be saying something to be understood or to relate. Just being there, no matter what, is one of the greatest gifts that we can ever give to someone. And remember this, that in the eyes of a child, love is spelled T.I.M.E. See you next time.
Best friend when I was growing up. I remember when he showed me his brand new baseball glove. I thought he was so lucky until I heard him say, I wish my dad could find the time and teach me how to play. Love is spelled time. Love is spelled time. It's something you spend, not something you buy. Before time is gone, I hope you will find a child, love is spelled time. She sits alone in the kitchen for hours by the phone, remembering the sounds of life when children graced her home. She's grateful for the memories, their pictures on her wall, but she wishes they could spend the day or take the time to call. Love is spelled time. Love is spelled time. It's something you spend, not something you buy. Before time is gone, I hope you will find in the eyes of a child, love is spelled time. Life's moments are so precious, how soon they pass us by. So make the time for memories before they say goodbye. Say goodbye. Love is spelled time. Love is spelled time. It's something you spend, not something you buy. Before time is gone, I hope you will find in the eyes of a child, love is spelled time. Before time is gone, I hope you will find in the eyes of a child, love is spelled